Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very senior and accomplished corporate leader from Mumbai, India, Mr. Ajay Dang. Ajay, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Ashutosh.
Thank you. Ajay is the president and head of marketing of UltraTech Cement, which is a part of the Aditya Birla Group. He was earlier with Nestle, Colgate-Palmolive, GE, HT Media, and Godrej Consumer. In 2016, Ajay was awarded the Marketer of the Year at the International Advertising Association Leadership Awards. So, Ajay, before we talk branding and marketing, tell
Sure.
me about your own journey in brief and what was the motivation to move from fast moving consumer goods or CPG to cement?
I think unlike many other people who have their life all planned out, I've had a series of wonderfully happy accidents where I've discovered what my gift is, and over the period of time, and that's how it has gone. There's been sorry to disappoint, but there's been no grand plan in that sense of the word.
Okay.
What I discovered was that while I think my many of my titles I've worked in sales, business, etc. What I've worked in various roles, but I think of myself a very curious person and a problem solver, and somebody who thinks not in silos of marketing, sales, finance, etc., but takes the broad view. And so that's been something that I discovered over some of the assignments that I had. It was just lucky that places that I joined, starting from Colgate to Godrej to GE to HT, and now at ABG, I've had assignments which were really interesting, which made me question the questions first. And that's what I liked, doing things without a playbook. That's something that I thought gave me great joy and helped me, if you may, build my mental, intellectual, curiosity muscles. So that's how it has gone.
Amazing. Thank you. So, my next question for you is that, given the fact that you've spent such a long time in consumer goods, how do you approach the whole concept of brand building in a commoditized product like cement?
I think I'd share a fun fact with you.
Yeah.
Uh, and like I said, I've ventured into spaces where I've thought there hasn't been a playbook. And once you question the basics in that particular domain, you interestingly find that there is huge amount of hidden value. So tread along the ground which has been treaded, and you might not find too much treasure, but in new territory, there is unexplored treasures that are there.
Hmm.
So FMCG was a great training ground. It
Hmm.
was a great training ground of companies focused on keeping the consumer first,
Hmm.
putting some systematic thinking into how to approach the task, and scientifically doing it, and also using a lot of analytics and using a lot of logic, and a lot of data, sometimes quantified, sometimes not so. But that approach was a great training ground for me. Uh, I've seen the current terrain. I joined HT, for example, which was a media business that I knew nothing about. Where after 3 months, I went across to my boss and told, "Your brief to me is wrong," because my consumer is not necessarily the reader, but maybe there are many more stakeholders that we need to
Correct.
cater to.
Hmm.
Similarly, in cement, I remember when I was joining, uh, I my strong gut feel, and that point of time, I had not met as many consumers in the domain, but my strong gut feel was traveling across the country, that what a home means to this country,
Hmm.
uh, it's humongously important financially and more importantly emotionally. And the most important constituent of that being called a commodity means that somewhere somebody is not done the right justice to the job.
Mm.
And that's what we discovered. I think what we discovered was that this was a category where, uh, uh, and we compared some of the numbers across. We compared for an average Indian household, nearly 80% of their assets were in home building. So financially, it was important that
Yeah.
everybody knew. But what we discovered was that many of the reasons that people ascribed to why they were building a home were rationalized responses that people had taken on their face value. People talked about stuff that it's been built for their kids, for financial reasons, for independence sake, and so on and so forth.
Mm.
But what we realized that an average Indian who builds their home at 35 builds it because that's his tangible means of establishing his identity and competence to people around him.
Well said.
And
Mm.
and there can't be a greater emotional uh, 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 journey and purpose than that.
Mm.
And it being such a unique journey,
Mm.
also what we discovered that cement, which the rest of the category was treating like with hyperboles and various battering rams walking into walls, etc., uh, each had much deeper meaning, despite the fact that only 15% of the cost was of the home was cement, but nearly 80% people said that that was the most important decision in the home building journey. So the biggest project and the most important decision within that, because it was irreversible, because it holds everything together,
Mm.
and that gave us a very simple view from the consumer's point of view,
Mm.
saying that, look, this can't be a commodity. And that's the journey that we've traversed. Uh, Going back to your FMCG comparison, last 10 years, if I can take India, FMCG as a whole has grown nearly half that of the GDP growth rate, 3%. We, in the last 7 years, have grown at a CAGR of close to 16%. There are not many categories, Ashutosh, that you'll find in this country where you normally have the largest player being the most discounted and the mass market. We are the largest player and the most premium. Uh, uh, if you asked any marketer to take a tough assignment and turning a so-called commodity into a brand, yeah, what could you lick your lips with relish because it's a challenge.
Correct.
Uh, yeah,
Very well said. And this is an incredible insight because as you were talking, I remember I used to live in Singapore, and when I bought my first house, I think I must have been 37, 38. My mother couldn't stop telling all her relatives कि देखो उसने घर खरीद लिया. And now, as you said it, you're so right. Most people at that age buy the house not just for themselves, but because of the credibility and relevance in the community that they're in. What a powerful insight. And thank you for sharing this.
Ashutosh, also from an India point of view, people like you and me are less than possibly 0.5% of
Absolutely.
this country.
Yeah,
For 85% of India, they don't have a steady income.
correct.
So they don't have a business card, they don't have a steady income.
Hmm.
So what's their identity, tangible identity to people around them? The other interesting, very, very potent insight, like you said, when you talked about your mother sharing stuff,
Hmm.
we heard people talk war stories about their home building journey,
Yeah,
which gave us the clue that this is something that they want to prove their identity and competence to people.
correct. Correct. What a great response. Thank you. My next question for you is that cement products understandably have a long purchase cycle, and there are a lot of influencers, starting from your architect to your contractor. And yet, when think of all your ads, and your ads are probably one of the most iconic that I see on television all the time, but how important it is to be able to get the actual owner to say that I have taken the decision to buy UltraTech cement. Help me understand a little bit more on this insight.
So Ashutosh, it was interesting. So because, like I said, we had to do stuff from ground up,
Correct.
from where the entire industry believed that the dealer was the consumer.
Mm.
We challenged some of that, uh, uh, and we figured out as to while there were many influencers, there was the contractor, there was the dealer, there was the engineer architect.
Mm.
Because it is such an important journey personally for them, they listen to a lot of people, but they make the decision themselves.
Right.
Uh, Also, the piece that we hear often in this category is that it's a low involvement category.
Mm.
I think we piece the nuance that's a very high involvement category, but low knowledge.
Right.
I use the example akin to maybe getting your father's heart operated. So it's very important. It's a once in a lifetime risky decision.
Mm.
You might not know terribly about it, but you are really keen to get it right. And that's the same story for this category. The
Amazing.
parallels are eerie.
Hmm. Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. My next question is that, again, when I go back, and I'm much older than you are, but, cement was something, as you said, was distributors, and yet you have managed to take it to the consumer. What, in your view, are some of the most effective channels for communication with your target sector when it comes to cement or UltraTech cement?
So I think we've taken the journey, we've defined the role of marketing slightly larger than just communication.
Yeah.
We've said that this is a iconic, very important journey for somebody. Is there, besides providing stuff to people, first, I think when people approach this journey, they don't have a roadmap,
Yeah.
essentially, right? So if you're buying a car, at least you know what to look for.
Correct.
Here, you start with practically a blank slate. And if you are 31, 32, that's the average age when people build,
Hmm.
you are pretty much clueless. So, besides providing material, can we help out in this journey, which is pretty much a very irreversible journey where the stakes are very high and the cost of failure is very, very large? We've said, can we solve greater amount of problems besides just saying that we are the best? And if you see much of our outreach, marketing outreach, it's not about saying that we are better than the next cement brand or stronger or weaker or
Hmm.
more durable, etc.
Hmm.
We don't
Hmm.
talk that.
Hmm.
What we've put together is we've helped people with the framing of the question itself in the category as to why should you choose the better cement, which is because your home is built only once. Second, in this journey, can we help you in terms of the jobs to be done that you have, the decisions that you have to make, the choices that you have to make, how to choose land, how to choose a brick, how to choose a contractor, how to supervise him?
Hmm.
Now, these ideally might be thought of as not your domain because you're selling cement, but we are in this journey, trust and expertise. These are the two things that somebody values the most. And if you help them, if you help solve the consumer's problem, I don't think most times you have to worry about your own problems.
Absolutely. Great response. Ajay, I was also thinking when I see some of your ads, I was going back to 1971 when my father built his house, and cement was almost, purchased based on getting favors.
That's correct.
Today, it's being advertised. As a marketing man, how do you leverage data and analytics in a sector like cement and construction?
So I think data is both formal as well as informal is very, very useful. So
Right.
from three stakeholders point of view.
Mm.
One, I think finding out what's the optimal, because each person wants personalization in terms of the house that he's building. It
Mm,
has to be unique
mm,
for his story.
mm.
Second piece is that his requirements are very, very unique. The context is very, very unique.
Right.
So we understand the value is not necessarily in the product that we are selling, but fitting and delivering to his best context. That's where the delivery and the value is the most. Similarly, we treat the influencer, the contractor, as a small businessman. Helping him do his job better and earn make his business grow is something that we do really well.
Right.
Uh, Third thing, advice to each one of these stakeholders has to be timely. So if I'm at my construction stage at a foundation, I
Mm,
think there are due steps that I need to sort there. Uh, if I'm at a different stage of my home building, if I need to do preemptive waterproofing, that's the advice that needs to reach timely to him at that
mm,
point of time because it's a large project. It's a 6 to 9 months to a year's project.
mm.
And therefore, advice, expertise, empathy, all of that stuff needs to go to people in a timely fashion and a very personalized fashion,
Interesting.
which is what data is hugely useful for.
Mm. Well said. So, Ajay, we've spoken about several things, but I want to now to ask you your thoughts on consumer behavior. And you've been, in the consumer products goods sector, and now you are in the consumer durable sector, if I may use the term for
Sure.
cement. How have you seen over the years in your career consumer behavior change? Because what I read now is that the millennials, younger millennials, Gen Z and now maybe Gen Alpha, are taking decisions only based on experiences and reviews.
I would tend to think not. I think I have a little contrary view
So,
onto that.
hmm,
Uh, I would tend to think that some of the human drivers
hmm,
never change,
hmm.
right?
Okay.
We all like to be loved, we like to be appreciated, all like our identity to be established, we all want to stand for something, we all crave for affiliation. It's only possibly the context and the means of communication that change over a period
Hmm,
of time.
hmm,
Uh, who would have thought that people are building counter to all the narrative that you read in the business press?
hmm.
People are building homes at 32. A quarter of people before getting married are building their
Yeah,
homes, right? These are people who, if you would have the press believe, then they are all about vacations and experiences and not owning anything at all.
correct.
Uh, but the reality is very, very different.
Hmm,
I think the drivers, human drivers, they are the most firm piece to ground your business into because they never change.
hmm.
Your context might change, what media they're consuming might change, so the need for a home, for security, for identity never changes from the caveman to maybe another 500 years, it's
Yeah.
not going to change.
Hmm,
So some of these business drivers, I think rather than chasing the next shiny object,
hmm,
you've got to base your business on stuff which is firm ground,
hmm.
which is going to be steady, and your insights based on that.
Well said. Well said. Moving on, and I want to ask you this a little more generic question. The Aditya Birla Group is such a major group with so many different brands, from durables to jewelry and a whole lot of other things. How do you ensure, as the head of marketing and president of UltraTech, that your branding aligns with the larger goals of the group?
I think we've also had a very enduring value that we have within the Birla
Mm,
Group, and the one of the purpose statements that to impact positively people's lives.
mm,
If you would have seen some of the work that we're doing on Banega to Badega
mm,
India,
mm,
the thought, while everybody else, if you see every other infrastructure company or company that contributes to it, they're busy talking about I, me, myself, right? As to how wonderful we are and how uh, uh, great we've built great monuments and so on and so forth. I think our view is very, very counter to that. We understand the reason why we come to work every day
Mm.
is because the stuff that is getting built in India today is making a major impact to
Mm.
people's lives.
Mm.
Uh, for you and me, a bridge might mean that our maybe estimated travel time goes down by 5 minutes.
Right.
But for most of India,
Mm.
the meaning of infrastructure is the ceiling that they have on their aspirations or their ambitions. I think that suddenly goes up.
Mm.
The meaning of infrastructure, the meaning of stuff getting built
Mm.
is very, very different for mass of India.
Mm.
So I think we treat our purpose not so much as to selling bags of cement, but we are creating stuff which has permanent impact in people's lives. And it is changing the trajectory. So India is a young country, 29 years old, but there are, and they're very ambitious, very
Mm.
positive.
Mm.
India is a very positive country despite all the circumstances that we have.
Amazing.
Uh, and but there is a ceiling kept on our ambition.
Mm.
And what we are doing, what the country is doing right now,
Mm.
what the government is doing right now is trying to lift that ceiling of people's ambition,
Mm.
of India's ambition.
Correct. Correct. Well said. Ajay, I have time for two more questions. My next question is, how important is sustainability? And again, when I was growing up, none of this was even we didn't even understand sustainability. But how important is sustainability in the consumer perception for a cement brand?
I think we intuitively, the Western concept of sustainability is possibly a little warped, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Because there has been so much wastage in the West.
Mm.
Therefore, but I think in India and the Indian subcontinent and Asia,
Mm.
I think we intuitively get sustainability.
Mm.
We intuitively, if you take tenets of reusing stuff and not letting anything go to waste, not, if you may, mining something more than that is required, uh, I think we intuitively get it. How we reuse stuff, how we possibly squeeze out the maximum value out of stuff. That's sustainability. Maybe we need to frame it better and possibly ship it back to the West.
Right.
So we intuitively get it.
Mm.
Sustainability might have multiple meanings in different sectors.
Mm.
For example, in Aditya Birla Group, we have the novelist business where I think a very large portion of aluminium is recycled. In cement, we use huge amount of alternate fuel because just the chemical process itself it generates a lot of carbon dioxide and power and fuel is consumed. So we use as much alternate fuels, also use lesser and lesser natural resources like water, like limestone, and use maybe refuse from other industries like fly ash, which the power industry generates, and send that across. Now, uh, does that does the consumer actively buy from that point of view? For them, it's a once in a lifetime purchase. What they want is that their home or their infrastructure that they're building has to be the best, right? Uh, in the process, if we manage sustainability delivering to their objectives, they're all for it. So it needs to be treated or understood possibly in our Asian context a little differently.
Well said. Great response. And my last question for you, Ajay. Um, as a quintessential marketer, what do you see as the future of brand building in the construction materials industry?
I think we are at a very interesting phase in India's development, and uh, if you travel across India and look at it from those eyes, India is an open construction site. Why? Because I think it's understood that infrastructure and stuff that is getting built an economist would tell you it would add 2 to 3% to India's GDP growth rate.
Yes.
Uh, and it has a very empowering impact in people's lives. So I can think about as a policymaker, but the real feeling is when you see people's lives getting impacted, the human impact that it is making. For a girl child, if you see that she suddenly can dream, just being in our village, she can dream and crack any with education without boundaries. If you see somebody doesn't have to travel away from his family and the factory is next door and he can be with his family and earn money as well. So the human impact is actually very humbling, very mind-boggling. And I think India is at a stage where we are a key kicker, key catalyst in that particular growth. And I think for the foreseeable future, uh, we are a country under construction.
Absolutely. And on that note, Ajay, I want to say thank you so much for speaking to me about your journey. Clearly, you are a person who has chosen to walk the path less trodden, to use an old phrase. Thank you for speaking to me about brand building for cements. Your examples, your stories really took me back, and I could appreciate how you seem to have humanized the whole concept of building a brand, which is a cement which I always thought was a commodity. I learned new things from you. Thank you for talking to me at such length about different aspects of cement, about the importance of homes in every one of our lives, and how critical it is, because most of us probably spend, it's probably the single largest purchase Indians make in their lives.
That's
Thank you
correct.
also for talking to me about the values of your group and how it relates with UltraTech. And my last comment, I remember when I was in Calcutta and there used to be a paint company called Jensen and Nicholson, where the famous line was, whenever you think of color, you think of us. I think you have made this and you've ensured that whenever people think of cement, they think of UltraTech. Thank you for speaking to me and good luck.
Thank you so much. I think it's been a pleasure speaking to you and hope to stay in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.